Today, I wanted to build this obstacle, so let's do it. The first thing that I did was print it out to scale and then cut it out. Then I traced it onto a sheet of plywood and cut out the general shape of it. That way I wouldn't waste too much plywood on the next part. I decided to make 2 of these because 2 is always better. I glued the sheet of 3/4 inch plywood to a sheet of 1/2 inch plywood. That would be 1.25 inches thick. I used screws to hold it down and then used clamps where I couldn't get screws. After letting it dry, I took the clamps off and started using the jigsaw to cut out the real shape. And already, I can tell that this obstacle is gonna look great. I did the same thing to the other one, and then I had 2 chunks of wood that looked like a wingnut. You wouldn't want to hold on to these right now because these edges hurt, so I used the router to cut off the edge. This left a small ridge that went over the whole thing, so I used the belt sander to clean that up. Then I found the centers on both sides and drilled a 1.5 inch hole. Then I drilled holes where the edges of the special deliveries would be, that way it would be a perfect rounded edge. Then I used the jigsaw to cut straight across to finish out the special delivery. And just like the outsides of the wingnut, I don't want these to hurt when I hold on to them, so I used the router to round them too. The next step was to glue circles to the center where it would hang from the bar. It didn't really matter what size the circles were, and I already had some from previous projects, so I just used those and rounded the edges with the router, then glued them down. To drill the holes, I used a 1 1/8 inch drill bit because that's the size that my bars are on my ninja course. Now, this was pretty much done, but there were still some spots that were messed up from the power tools. So I used wood putty to fill in the cracks. I quickly sanded it down, then it was ready to paint. I used this red paint, which is really good at protecting it from the weather. Then I painted the circles black and flung red paint all over the circles. Lastly, I put on a coat of clear polyurethane. And after letting it dry, I was finally able to test it out where I landed this super cool flip.